candidates from each of our 6 geographic regions. The nominees are also professionally diverse. Almost all of them, or most of them, have worked or currently work at national corporations or nonprofits. Several of them are entrepreneurs, having started their own companies or consulting practices. 3 of them are directly involved in academia, and 5 of them have worked in politics or government. And finally, we believe this is also the most racially diverse slate ever presented. And I mentioned this last, but it is certainly not least, because the National Board Development Committee believes that this kind of diversity is still critically important at the top of our organization and indeed at every level of Girl Scouting. So in summary, I hope that you will agree that this is a slate that is in line with the last line of the overhead that you have in front of you, a slate with talent and expertise that's in line with our future strategic needs. So if you have any questions about our process or the composition of the slate, I'll certainly be happy to try to answer them.
Thanks, Patricia. We have 5 minutes now to take your questions.
If you would like to ask a question of Patricia Romines and the National Board Development Committee, please type them into the question log now, and we will read them out loud to Patricia.
Well, that must mean we've done a very good job.
Some questions are coming in now, Patricia.
Oh, they are. Too bad.
Well, someone is thanking you for your work. They're thanking the Board Development Committee for their work. Someone wants to know how a person can be nominated to the National Board.
Well, an individual self-nomination is possible just by going to the National Board website, or you can submit your own or another person's nomination through the board office. And in a moment, I may be able to give you that. I think maybe I'll rely on somebody else to tell you exactly how to contact the board office. But what I would say is that the Board Development Committee would really welcome those nominations beginning as early as the beginning of the next triennium, because we really try to accumulate referrals throughout the triennium, and we do have vacancies occasionally during the triennium.
We have several questions coming in on when will they know the slate, the names on the who has been nominated. I can answer that, Patricia. Workbooks have been distributed to councils, and in those workbooks, information on the slates, including the nominees' bios, were in the workbooks. If you're a delegate and have not yet received your workbook, please contact your local council. They should have it in their office to distribute to you. It's also, if you have access to the delegate website, a PDF version of the workbook is on the delegate website. So we have another question that has come in. Are board members compensated?
No, they aren't. Their expenses, we offer to pay their expenses. In some cases, board members donate their expenses as part of their volunteer service, but national board members are volunteers.
Do you have representatives on the board from all over the U.S.? Do they represent all the U.S. states?
Not every state is represented. We have 30 board members, and so it would be impossible to have all 50 states represented. In Girl Scout land, we divide the country into 6 regions, and we have representatives. We make sure that there are at least 1 or 2 representatives from every region. And as you can imagine, it's not so easy to gather nominations from the regions that are, remote from where the board meetings happen. And so we feel very fortunate that the areas that we have had the most success are not just the Northeast, but we are now really, I think, doing very well on the West Coast. But in some areas in the middle of the country, it has been harder to generate the same wealth of candidates. But we have, always been able to make sure that all regions were represented.
Next question, Patricia. Is there any chance that the local council may receive the names of the candidates that applied for the board membership but not selected? This may be beneficial to see if the proposed candidates may care to support at the local council level.
I think, it sort of depends where the nomination came from. I'm not sure what the protocol would be. I don't know if anybody else has a view on that, but I'm concerned that someone who submitted a nomination would not consider that we had the right to pass it on in that way.
Right. This is Nadine Loring, your Chief Governance Officer. Generally, the submissions for board members, the nominations are considered confidential. So we generally would not circulate those back out because, as Patricia said, we do not have the permission to share that information with council.
Yeah, that seems right, Nadine.
We have time for about 2 more questions. Patricia, the next question is, what is the typical financial contribution expected from board members?
We told the people who were incoming that they had to make a contribution which was personally significant to them. However, we did tell them that existing board members, most of existing board members, give in the range of $5,000 to $25,000 a year, and that helps them to understand what the level of expectation is.
This is the last question we will have for the moment on the slate. Has Kathy Hokinka-Hannon served Girl Scouts before in any capacity? Any relationship to Irene Ortzman-Hannon?
Oh, no, they are not related. And Kathy Hannon has been a member of our board for the current triennium, the past triennium.
And this is Nadine. Kathy also was very active at the local council in Chicago and has long-standing relationship. Is actually was a Girl Scout as well. So Connie, why don't we turn this back to you for the next part of the program?
Great. Thanks so much, Patricia, and thank you for the questions. We're going to now turn to the proposals. The resource team for Proposal 1 on this webinar consists of Linda Foreman, chair of the task group that studied this topic, Janet Newbert, COO of the Girl Scouts of Greater Chicago and Northwest Indiana, who also served on the task group, and Susan Swanson, GSUSA's Chief Volunteer Officer. The team is going to first provide some background on Proposal 1, flexibility of dues and registration practices. Linda?
Thanks, Connie, and thanks everyone for calling in. As many of you know, previous national councils have considered many proposals related to membership and dues categories. You, the National Council, past and recent, wanted new options to be considered, and your voice was heard. During this triennium, a task group composed of council staff, national staff, and national board members explored our current membership landscape and needs and tested a variety of membership options, opportunities, and practical considerations to respond to both our current and future needs, our current members, and those we would hope to attract. In this work, it became clear that our councils favor and need flexibility around membership, and that our governing documents themselves pose some limitations. Our constitutional language currently permits only lifetime and annual membership categories and dues. So it is essential that we amend our Constitution to create greater flexibility. Creating flexibility in the language does not affect any current membership category, so annual and lifetime memberships remain, but simply creates the possibility of additional categories or types of membership in the future. And Janet's going to talk a little more practically about that. I hope. Janet?
Janet, if you will unmute yourself.
I'll fill in by saying Janet brought a key voice from councils and direct connection with membership to our work on the task group, and I think has a very clear council perspective related to this work. Janet?
Linda, this is Susan. Do you want me to take it for Janet? And Janet, if you let us know if you get on, I'll pass it back to you. Is that okay?
Yeah. Thanks, Susan.
All right. So this work grew from and depended on your voice and desire to make it easier for people to become members of Girl Scouts. And we tested a number of recommendations with both current Girl Scout members as well as non-members. And through that due diligence, we really did learn a lot. Some things that we thought would be of great interest actually tested poorly externally, while other things that tested well were not thought feasible to implement by current members based on our current technology available. This was a grassroots proposal, and members throughout the organization provided important input to the process throughout. If this proposal passes, the same types of co-creation involving GSUSA, councils, and our members will need to be implemented. If approved, we'll put a team together to relook at current recommendations and to add new research as well. We will all better understand new systems, technology capabilities that have been introduced since the original work was conducted, which will likely shed new light on what's possible going forward. Any new membership categories, any new categories of membership proposed through this process would ultimately be approved by the National Board of Directors. We hope you will support this proposal as we together seek to extend the benefits of Girl Scouting to increasingly diverse communities of girls and families. We now have some time, 10 minutes, for questions.
Thank you, research team. We will start with the questions.
So the first question that has come in is, could different councils elect different definitions of applicable and implement this in different ways? Would girls who move from another area of the country potentially have to pay double?
Giselle, can you read that question again, please?
Of course I can. Could different councils elect different definitions of applicable and implement this in different ways? Would girls who move from another area of the country potentially have to pay double?
Okay, I will take a first pass at this. I think the word applicable is meant really in a fairly narrow sense here to apply to if there are if there ends up being at some point in time a number of different membership categories, each one of them might have dues associated with it, and that's what the word applicable means. Just as now, the applicable membership for an annual membership is $15. I don't think this proposal in any, I think there would need to be other structures and processes in place for people who move from council to council. Susan?
No, Linda, I support your answer. I mean, this is ultimately whatever our members and our councils and GSUSA together come up with would include testing feasibility, which would include the pricing question. So I think you answered it. It would be something that we would propose, test, and believe the majority want to adopt in a consistent way across the country.
The next question is, how will these membership products be supported by councils who do not yet have access to the new technology platform?
Susan, please, as a practical matter here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we are adopting some exciting new technology, but again, I mean, nothing would be introduced until we felt as though it was able to be implemented across the country. And so it is going to be a bit before we execute on the technology, and it's going to be a bit of time before we can really learn what the best options are going to be for us and retest those options. So unless the majority of our members and our councils across the country feel as though it's a good proposal and one that they can actually implement, we would not propose it to the national board.
Susan, this is Janet. Can you hear me now?
Oh, we can, Janet. Thank you.
Thanks, Janet.
Hey, I'm sorry about that, everybody. Not sure what happened with technology, but I thought it was a great time to jump in since we're talking about technology. And I would just add to Susan's comments that for everyone on the call to remember that not only do we need some lead time for any new membership categories on how councils will implement them, we're still developing and testing ideas and wanting to see what will have good acceptance, both from our or like I like to call them not yet members, as well as from our existing members and from council staff as well. So we'll need some time to gear up not only in creating those categories, figuring out how to implement them, but also in getting the word out and marketing any new membership categories and what the advantages to those are. So as much as we want to see this proposal pass in Salt Lake City in October, we still have some work to do before we're ready to launch anything.
The next question we have is, will we still have lifetime memberships available?
Yes. The current categories do not go away. This proposal only creates flexibility for future membership categories should they be developed.
The next question is, with only a $15 annual membership fee, why is this flexibility necessary?
I think the necessity is not about the $15. The necessity is about the fact that right now we only have 2 membership categories available to members, and one of them is an annual. So, and there was some appetite from our councils and from the volunteers that they engaged around this issue, as well as from the testing we did internally and externally, that perhaps we were limiting ourselves and our future by just having the current 2 membership categories, and that if we could create flexibility in our language, we can create other options for people to join us and belong.
And Linda, this is Janet. Let's also remember that the lifetime membership category is an option that's only available to graduating girls from high school and to adult members. So for the majority of our members and the target of our mission and our movement, the girls, there is only one product category. And as we're all seeing in the world today in marketing of other companies and other products, choice and customization are key themes of what consumers are looking for. And so we want to be able to offer some choice and some flexibility in our membership options. It's something as a COO I hear all the time from our members at our council and our volunteers is that we'd like to see some different choices in how this works, the timing, et cetera, et cetera.
Great point, Janet. Thanks.
The next question is, if this motion passes, will there be another vote to cover the levels of membership?
there's no proposal related to the levels of membership. So this proposal creates the flexibility for developing future membership categories in the process that Susan outlined earlier around council and national co-creation, real vetting in terms of feasibility and capacity, and final approval by the national board. Susan or Janet want to add?
I think that was great. The only talking point that I was going to bring up earlier is I have been assured that the National Board of Directors will not approve any category of membership or related dues without ensuring that there's been a due diligence process through that approval, and that the recommendation is not simply coming from national staff or council staff, but that like any business that is testing a new product, that there would be a certain level of due diligence and acceptance by our members and prospective or not yet members that this would be something that would be feasible, it's priced reasonably, and that we have high hopes is easily administratively implemented by all councils. So rest assured, I know that's a question I heard from our delegation, from other folks. That's something that absolutely will be looked into and demanded by the National Board before approving any membership categories.
Thanks.
So the next question is, have you given any consideration of the impact of changes that due structures will affect the budgetary cycles of existing councils?
Well, I'll jump in. This is Janet again from Chicago. The national dues currently, as I think most of our members know by now, the $15 national annual dues that we pay goes to GSUSA. There is an option from our last triennial convention for councils to opt into a council service fee on girl membership only that would be added on to that would be kept locally. Certainly something that will have to be considered in any new membership categories is the impact that will have on membership nationally, and that would mean revenue and budget impact to both the national organization as well as council organizations who are assessing a council service fee. So I think there is good awareness that any new membership products or categories and how they're implemented may affect overall membership numbers and performance and related revenue. Also, councils have an interest in family partnerships and donations that accompany any new membership categories as well. So I think we're all cognizant of that. However, it's too soon to start modeling any specific budget scenarios because we don't have specific membership recommendations and dues recommendations formulated as of just yet.
We have time for one more remaining question. And this question is, if this proposal passes, when would likely be the next time Girl Scout volunteers would be able to weigh in on implementation of the new categories? By the next convention, or do you think a longer lead time will be necessary?
I would hope that in the co-creation process that the work of this task group modeled and that GSUSA and councils are engaged in on many different levels, that the voice of volunteers and councils would be integral to council participation in the process. So I think it would be an ongoing thing as, should this proposal pass, as a working group is formed to pick up where we left off, re-examine the whole landscape, both technology and membership, and really engage our councils, and councils engage their membership in this process. I would imagine it an ongoing effort. Right, Susan?
Yeah, Janet, anything to add on that? That's perfect, Linda.
I think Linda said it really well, but I think we're entering a really exciting era in Girl Scouts, and this concept of co-creation that has been really well used by this task group in networking and using outside market research, as well as talking to our existing members and potential future members. But I think this concept of co-creation and how we work to across our movement, United Together for Girls, and to be more responsive and try to catch up to the speed of girls. There are times where I think we're right there, but there are times where through some of our governance limitations, for example, the one in this proposal, we're kind of caught a little bit behind the times and getting caught up by only being able to propose new membership categories every 3 years. So I think Linda's exactly right. The spirit of co-creation goes beyond this proposal and beyond membership categories, and I think you'll be seeing, from what I understand, much more of that across a lot of different aspects of Girl Scouting. But I think we won't be waiting 3 years to hear more about this. I think the dialogue will be ongoing, though. There won't be beginning, middle, and end. Hopefully we'll see some new categories come up, but I think it'll be an ongoing process and dialogue that we'll all be talking and learning from each other through the next 3 years and beyond.
Great. Thank you, resource team. The next is for Proposal 3. We have, it's the role of past presidents. And, oh, no, I'm sorry, it's Proposal 2, which is the reporting relationship of the Chief Financial Officer. This is consistent with current practice within the nonprofit sector, and there should be one executive appointed by the board with all other staff members reporting to that one executive. This strengthens role clarity. The Chief Executive Officer is the appropriate executive to appoint the CFO. This resource team consists of board members Karen Maloney and Chuck McLean, and Girl Scout staff member Mary Ann Dwyer, our senior governance advisor. And we have 5 minutes for Q&A.
Unmuted.
It is now time to ask questions on Proposal 2. If you have any questions in regard to Proposal 2, reporting relationship of the Chief Financial Officer, please ask them now. And we have some questions coming in for the resource team. So Karen, Chuck, and Mary Ann, the first question is, what is the historical purpose behind the CFO reporting to the board?
Unmuted.
Hi, this is Karen. Can you hear me?
Yes, Karen, you're coming in.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure. I think historically there was, organizationally, the design was for it to come to the board, but in recent history, we have had a relationship with Anna and her team where, in reality, the CFO, to be part of a single management leadership team, has actually been reporting through Anna, and the reporting as a team has been wonderful. So there isn't a need for it to be separated at this point.
The next question is, with this proposal, what structures will be in place for proper oversight of GSUSA's finances?
Unmuted.
Can you repeat the beginning of the question?
Of course, Karen. With this proposal, what structures will be in place for proper oversight of GSUSA's finances?
Unmuted.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up, so I'm just going to repeat back what I think you asked me. Are they concerned about what controls will be in place for oversight of GSUSA's finances?
Yes.
I think the controls will be very similar to what they are today. You'll have a CFO and an accounting organization that reports through the CEO so that we have a uniform thought process in how the movement is informed and moving forward, and they will take the information to the Finance Committee and the full board in the same manner as they do now. They are effectively operating currently as though Angela reports up through Anna, even though she reports to the Finance Committee. There isn't really a reason for her to report up to the board independently. So there isn't any lack of control for her to come up this way.
Hey, would you like me to add something to that? Can you hear me?
Yes, Chuck, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, in addition to what Karen said, that the structure on the board, which has its fiduciary oversight responsibility, will remain intact as well. We annually appoint an outside auditor to review and opine on financial statements. We have an audit committee that is appointed on a triennial basis, as well as a finance committee, and a treasurer is elected. And the board has oversight responsibility for approving the annual budget and monitoring the financial reports. So all of that will remain intact under the new reporting responsibility.
The next question is, how will this actually affect volunteers, councils, or the girls?
It won't.
Yeah.
It won't.
Yeah.
Next question is, does this cause an issue with checks and balances?
I think that's almost a duplicate to the answer that was given just a minute ago, and that is all the checks and balances that operate within GS USA right now will remain intact. The board oversight responsibilities will remain intact, and the board, in its appointment of external audit firm, come in and look at all of those internal controls as well as the financial statements and opine on whether they remain effective and those internal controls are in place. So none of that will change.
We have time for one more question, and the last question will be, who will define the job of the CFO if it is no longer determined in the Constitution?
I don't know that the CFO, excuse me, can you hear me? I'm having a little feedback, but in the Constitution is, as I understand it, it's a reporting responsibility that is defined. So the best practices and the responsibilities and capabilities and skill sets in defining the role of the CFO still remain as they were. In fact, and this gave us the opportunity in that we currently did a search and hired a CFO to look at best practices both within the nonprofit sector as well as the for-profit sector to determine what are those best practice skill sets, capabilities of a CFO as we conducted this search.
Thank you, Chuck. I turn this back over now to Connie Lindsay.
Okay, thanks, Resource Team 2. We now have 5 minutes for Proposal 3, the role of the past presidents. The intent is to be consistent with the role of the past presidents within other large nonprofits. Past presidents have been utilized and will be utilized in an effective manner for the betterment of our movement without defining the role in GSUSA governing documents. Resource team members are past president Cynthia Thompson and me, along with staff members Mary Ann Dwyer, senior governance advisor, and Gail Benson. We'll now open for 5 minutes of Q&A on Proposal 3.
If you have any questions regarding Proposal 3, the role of past presidents, please type them into the question box now. As there are no questions regarding proposal, one has come in, sorry. So the first question is, will past presidents who are ex officio members have voting rights?
Not under this proposal, but they will still be involved in the work of Girl Scouting as all of us do in other ways.
The next question is, isn't it the norm to leave the current past president on the board?
It's been the norm for Girl Scouting, but it isn't the norm in the nonprofit world. We looked at broadly, and it's not the norm in all of the councils either. We looked broadly at what some of the practices were in other large nonprofits, and we find that that is not the norm. And so we are ensuring that we're able to manage the organization with current board members and current board chair, with the former board chairs as enthusiastic volunteers as we all will be.
The next question is, do past presidents currently have voting rights?
Yes.
Sorry, they're currently...
They're ex officio members, so they don't have voting rights, but they can attend the board meetings.
Perfect. Yep.
Yep.
The next question is, what is the reason for excluding them from board meetings materials as ex officio members? Why was this proposal made?
The proposal was made, as I said earlier, because we looked at large nonprofits similar to Girl Scouts of the USA, and to ensure that we are using best practices, that the current work of the board should be done by current board members and those closest to the movement and the work that's going on in any given triennium. And the best way to ensure that that happens is to make sure that you have the current board chair and the current board members doing the work in partnership with the staff.
We have time for one more question. Can you share the other nonprofits? I think they're wondering what other nonprofits did we look at when examining this proposal?
I think the staff members, go ahead.
Yeah, Connie, this is Mary Ann. I can give you an idea of some of the large national nonprofit organizations that we looked at, and that would include the YMCA, Big Brothers Big Sisters, United Way Worldwide, Boys and Girls Club, American Red Cross, Boy Scouts of America, American Cancer Society, the Nature Conservancy, and the National PTA.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann and Connie. Connie, now I turn this over to you for the next portion of the webinar.
Thanks, team. And I now want to introduce Vicki Wright, the Outdoor Initiative lead. Vicki?
Thank you, Connie. We're very excited about the outdoor discussions that are taking place in councils right now. And I would personally like to express my appreciation to the councils where I've been able to have some direct conversation with volunteers and staff about the out-of-doors. We want to thank I think as of this morning, we had 10 councils who have already submitted their input to the 4 outdoor questions we posed to you all in our last webinar. Just a reminder that all input to those 4 questions from councils needs to be submitted by September 30th, and the instructions and link to submit that input into the Qualtrics survey is in the weekly executive essentials that is sent to CEOs and in the most recent issue as of yesterday. In terms of when the outdoor discussion will take place during the National Council session, we have 1 hour at the end of Friday's business meeting in the morning, and we have 1 hour at the end of Saturday morning's business meeting for our outdoor discussion. We'll begin the first session by sharing the results of the input you've all provided to the 4 questions, and we'll be clarifying some of that input using some straw poll voting to help us kind of get a better sense of what people as a movement were saying. We also have a speaker lined up for that morning session, and that will be Leslie Weldon, who's the Deputy Director of the National Forest Service, who was a Girl Scout as a girl and attributes her Girl Scouts to introducing her to the outdoors and her career path. We'll also be sharing some of the start of outdoor work that we're identifying for 2015. We'll then move into the outdoor discussion with comments and questions from delegates. So let's take a look at the format for how this discussion is going to take place. This is different than the procedures for discussing and voting on proposals that we've just gone through in this webinar. There will be no debate, and there is no motion on the floor that will be voted upon. Any voting that we do will purely be straw poll, kind of taking the pulse of the group. As a result of this, Robert's Rules of Order is not relevant for our discussion. We will be using microphones, and they'll be called on in order, beginning with microphone 2, ending with microphone 5. The first microphone 1 will be reserved for a resource team so that we can answer questions that you might have, and microphone 6 will not be used at all. Each council is to designate one National Council delegate to speak for their council. Speakers are to identify themselves by name and council that they represent, and the delegate will then have 1 minute to speak and or ask questions after introducing themselves. All comments and questions will be addressed to the presiding officer, who will determine if the question, who will address any questions that might be posed. Councils may only ask a question or speak the second time until after all councils wishing to speak have been heard. We know it's going to be a challenge to have as many councils as possible speak. We think that this format will help us be able to do that because we really want to hear from everybody as much as we can. So I believe we have a few minutes for some questions, and I do believe Joan Wagner, National Board Member, it may also be on the phone to answer some questions if needed.
Thank you, Vicki. The first question has come in regarding the outdoor discussion. The first question is, will we have any of the information from council feedback in advance of October 17th so that we can review and think about it?
We hope so. The timing will probably be very close because we'll need a little bit of time to sort through the data. But yes, I would hope we would have some information out to people ahead of time.
Vicki, the next question is, what session will this discussion be in?
As I said earlier, it's split into 1 hour at the last hour of the Friday morning business session and the last hour of the Saturday morning business session.
The next question that has come in is, will the GSLI girls be part of this discussion?
The GSLI girls will actually be having their own discussion on Thursday evening or Thursday late afternoon. And we will have 2 girls from the GSLI coming to the Friday morning session to present the girls' input into some of the questions. And the girls who are delegates from GSLI will be in the business meetings. The rest of the girls will be doing their other activities during that time.
Vicki, the next question that has come in is there any effort to gather best practices from councils around the country on how they get girls into the outdoors?
We've been doing a little bit of that right now. I think that's probably a major source of some of the groups that we'll be bringing together in the next year is trying to help councils connect with each other and have communities of practice where we can learn from each other and then share with all councils as we go forward. In terms of getting ready for the convention, a little bit of that has been done, but certainly not to the magnitude that we would like to see happen in 2015.
A question that has come in is, can you send the CCR a copy of the last slide you just showed outlining the procedure? This is Giselle Mendez. A copy of this presentation will be made available on the delegate website, and they will include this last slide regarding the procedures for the outdoor discussion. The next question that has come in is, if this is such an important issue, why is so little time being given to it?
I think it's a matter of the business of the National Council. There's a lot of things we have to do at these business meetings and what's going to happen. I think this is not the only conversation around outdoors that's going to happen. I think going forward after the National Council session, where we garner kind of some input and some sense of where the organization would like to go, I think there's going to be many more conversations happening following the convention and into the coming years.
Vicki, the next question is, I think we have time for one more question. So the last question is, what is the goal of having the discussion? In other words, what are we hoping to come away with?
I think the goal of having this conversation is to make sure that we're, as a movement, we're all on board with and have a sense of the role of outdoors in Girl Scouting and how much importance outdoors has in Girl Scouting going forward. So I think it's really about making sure we as a movement are in kind of agreeing the direction that we need to be going in the future.
Thank you so much, Vicki. And I'll turn this back over to Connie Lindsay.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, delegates, for your participation. A link to the recording will be posted on the delegate website. And as a reminder, the National Council delegate website is also available for delegates to ask questions about any of the 3 proposals or the discussion topic. And we hope this webinar has continued to help you with the important preparation that leads to good dialogue in the National Council session. I look forward to seeing all of you in Salt Lake City. Have a good evening.